Hey y'all, welcome back to the FEMFlow podcast. I'm your host, Erica Marie, and welcome to season 2. Now, if you were with me last season and you happened to catch the season finale, then you already know, okay? I shared the story behind where FEMFlow actually came from. Not the pretty version, not the polished version, the raw, messy, unfiltered truth. And I said things that I didn't even plan on saying, right? But that's what happens when you tell an origin story. When you're keeping it real, when it's unfiltered, shit happens, right? So I don't regret it one bit, right? Y'all needed to know where it came from. But I also made a promise for season 2 and where we were going to go. Number one, we're doing episodes every 2 weeks now, right? So instead of you seeing me every single Tuesday, it will be every other Tuesday, same time, same channel, different schedule. Okay. And eventually we're going to have people come on and we're going to start having conversations. But for season 2, it's going to be answering the question, what happens when protection comes first, right? And because you know where FEMFlow came from, you know how protection first was born. You also understand why protection is the hill that I will absolutely die on. Not that I'm wishing death on myself, right? But just I live and breathe it. Okay. And I want us to kind of talk about that in this episode, right? We're going to talk about the protection effect. Like when you start using protection first in one area and when you start prioritizing protection in one area of your life, it has this beautiful, almost butterfly effect, right? But I just call it the protection effect, where it kind of creates ripples everywhere else. And so we're going to talk about like what happens after you choose it, like what actually changes, not someday, not when you're making 6 figures, not because everything's magically better or your business finally takes off, right? But the things that change almost immediately when you consciously choose protection first and FEMFlow, right? And most people would assume that protection first is sort of like defensive, right? That it's like protection is something you do just in case something bad happens. It's how you protect yourself, like wearing a seatbelt when you're in a car, right? Or buying insurance or having an emergency fund, or just like it's always framed as preparing for disaster. But that's not how I see it, right? That's not how it was built. That's not what it is. It doesn't just keep things from happening, right? Because shit's going to happen no matter what. Instead, it creates a sort of insulation type of movement, right? And that's obviously a completely different conversation. So I want you to think about it like this, okay? When one area of your life becomes even a little more stable, it naturally starts supporting the next area, right? You don't have to force it. It just happens. So maybe your survival instincts, right? That fight or flight is finally starting to calm down, right? It's not as intense as it used to be. You're not constantly wondering whether every single thing that happens, like whether it's an unexpected expense, whatever, is about to wreck everything. Okay. You can actually breathe, like, no, it's not. I got this. Here's how I'm handling this, right? So when survival seems to calm down, right? And that worry eases, well, now being stable and stability, right, starts to get a little easier, right? And once your stability gets a little easier and you feel like you can stand straight, right, and stand tall on your 2 legs and you're not wobbling constantly, then taking care of yourself doesn't feel nearly as irresponsible anymore, because you're like, okay, my bills are handled, right? I'm handling things the way I'm supposed to. Things are going good right now. I have a little bit of a cushion set up, maybe not the cushion you want, but at least something. And something is better than nothing, right? I think we can all agree on that. Now I need to take care of me because I was working myself to the bone for so long, right? I never took time to just take care of me, to prioritize my own well-being and protecting my capacity and not constantly working on max all the time and going beyond my limits. And you stop feeling guilty about the fact that you're now prioritizing yourself and recognizing that your time, your energy, your attention, those are sacred things. You are your best self when your capacity is protected to the point where you're not scrambling all the time. You're not overexerting yourself. You're not burning out. You're not worried about 50,000 million things, right? Again, not a magical thing, but it just, even taking 5 minutes to breathe, even simply just having a lunch, a scheduled lunch break every single day, even if you work for yourself, right? That's what I mean when I say like you start taking care of yourself, right? Getting to the point where you can invest in help to take some of the things off of your plate, right? It doesn't feel irresponsible for you to prioritize your well-being anymore because everything is not depending on you. Right? Like you build up this system around you of people and protection first and FEMFlow and all the things, and it's suddenly easier to take care of you. And then eventually starting savings, right? Saving money doesn't even feel impossible anymore because you know how to leverage the resources that you have. You know, you can use a grace period if you need to. You know that there are things in place to protect you, to shield you when something goes wrong, not to prevent something going wrong, but to ensure that when something goes wrong, you're not right back drowning, right? And it's not because you suddenly became rich, right? It's not because somebody just randomly handed you more money. It's because your money isn't being spent every single month to constantly put out fires, right? You have a system. Things are flowing, right? Money comes in and goes where it's supposed to go. It's just smooth, right? Not, again, not saying it's perfection, not saying nothing ever happens. It's just saying when the pressure arrives, when that situation occurs, it has somewhere to land and it doesn't always land on you. And that makes a huge difference because when you can breathe in one area of your life, eventually you start creating room to breathe in other areas too, right? Because when your money isn't constantly cleaning up all these emergencies, it finally has room to do something else, something I would argue far more important, and that's protect you, right? That is what I call the protection effect, right? It starts in one area, you get it there, and then it just ripples to the next because once you're protected here, you naturally move towards protection in the next area, and then the next area, and then the next area. Personal, business, everywhere, right? It starts showing up in places that originally you weren't even trying to fix, right? Maybe you started using it for one specific reason. You saw that it helped it, right? It fixed the issue. It solved the problem you were trying to solve. And now you're like, wait, can I do this here? And then you move to start doing it there and you do it there and same thing, right? And then so on and so forth, right? And then next thing you know, like seriously, you start sleeping better. You sleep better than you ever slept before, right? You take more time for you to take care of you. And it's not because, again, that things are just magical and they end up working out in this magical way. It's because of how FEMFlow was built. It was built from pressure. That's how it was born, right? It was used in that situation, got externalized, systematized, and now it's meant to be flexible. It's not rigid. It's not shaming you, and it actually makes it to where you don't have to operate from constant pressure, right? And when you're not operating from constant pressure, you can make better decisions about who you want to work with, right? You no longer have to make those decisions out of desperation, right? So your boundaries get stronger, right? Because every opportunity doesn't feel like something you have to say yes to. You stop the panic spending, you stop guilt spending, you start planning, and planning actually starts feeling possible and easier. That's the crazy part, right? Like most of the things that you weren't even trying to work on, like you didn't wake up saying, today's the day I become better at boundaries. Today's the day I stop doing emotional spending, right? No, you don't wake up and say those things, right? But they do change naturally because the pressure and how you experience it changed. It's different. And I know you're probably like, what the hell? I'm doing my best, okay? I told y'all I don't do the polished stuff. Like, there's just so much that it changes that sometimes I find it hard to focus on one thing, right? Because that is the beauty of the protection effect. Like once you experience it with even one thing, right? It just kind of ripples and starts affecting everything else. And that's just basically what I was trying to say, right? Like once you get your protection up in one area, it just has this ripple effect and it starts going to other areas of your life and other areas where you're managing money and the things that you're doing, right? And honestly, I think that's where, protection gets misunderstood the most because people assume that it's this defensive thing, right? That they're just trying to fix behaviors that they have or a situation that they're in, when really they're trying to remove the conditions that created those behaviors in the first place. And those are not the same thing. We already know that, right? Protection, it changes your relationship with yourself. Okay. You stop feeling like you're always behind. Like it changes your relationship with money, right? Money stops feeling like the enemy. You stop feeling like you're bad with money, right? It changes your relationship with your business because now your business is supporting you instead of constantly pulling from you and needing you to support it, right? It can change your relationship with your family, right? Your time, even the opportunities that come your way, because eventually you stop reacting to everything. Like it started as a money management system, right? It started as a better way of handling money and financial decisions, and eventually became a better way of living life and looking at life and a better lens to view things through, right? And when you stop reacting to everything, right, and you start responding instead, like that's the difference when it comes to protection first. And that's why it's completely different, right? um Most people might think that protection limits you, right? Like it's restrictive, it's boring, it's all about saying no and all these things, right? But that's not what it is. That's not how I see it. That's not how it was built. That's not how I used it to get through everything that I got through, right? If anything, it created freedom. Okay? It's not just about saying no, it's about saying yes to the right things, right? Most of the time, we have to say no to something when we really want to say yes because we're in survival mode, right? We're doing money the old way and we're thinking about things the old way and everything's about earning more money. So you say no to things that you're passionate about or things that you want to say yes to because your worldview at that time is I can't afford it, or if I do that, then I'm never going to get where I want to be, right? You start rationalizing saying no to the things that actually need you to say yes, right? You say no to helping people. You say no to whatever it is you're saying no to that your heart is saying yes, but your mouth is saying no, right? It's that mismatch. And I mean, protection, it gives you this freedom to say yes when you mean it and say no when you mean it. Because how many times have you said yes to something when inside you're screaming no? Or how many times have you said no to something when inside you're screaming yes? Protection first gives you the ability to say the thing you want to say and not the thing you think you have to say, right? And do the things you want to do and not the things you think you have to do. Are you with me? Okay. So that's where the options come from, right? Because protection creates freedom, it creates options. And if you've been here for a while, right, you were here through season 1, at least some of it, if not all of it, right? Now we're on season 2. Then you remember episode 24 when we talked about how your revenue grew, but your options didn't. Like, do y'all remember that? Let me know. Um, but that's simply because revenue by itself does not create optionality, right? Protection does. Protection is what gives you the room to breathe. Protection is what lets you say no or not right now, or even, that's not really aligned with me anymore. You know what I'm saying? Right? Without your entire life falling apart because you said it. That's freedom. So if you take nothing else from today's episode, just take this. Protection isn't the finish line. It is the starting point that quietly but profoundly changes everything else in your life. You don't always notice it happening while it's happening, right? Sometimes you notice it months later. Sometimes it's a year later, right? But eventually one day you're just like, something happens that would have completely overwhelmed the old version of you, right? It would have been too much for you to handle. You would have broke. But instead, you handled it and you did it with grace. And it's not because life got easier, right? It's not because you're suddenly fearless, right? It's because your system is stronger and it's protecting you, because protection has actually been doing the job it was supposed to be doing all along, right? Allowing you to breathe. It's been just compounding in all areas of your life, okay? And I think that's where we're going to leave this season opener, okay? Because when we come back in 2 weeks, I want to talk about one of my favorite, let's call it a side effect, right, of protection. You know what? I wouldn't even call it a side effect. Just my favorite effect of protection and protection first thinking. Okay, something that I think we need to talk about. All right, and it's called discernment. Okay. And we're going to talk about what it means when your discernment is essentially revived. It comes back to life, right? We got to talk about it because protection first is something that opens the door for that to come back and for alignment to step into the room, right? So thank you so much for watching. Welcome to season 2. I'm so excited for where this journey is about to take us. And until next time, do me a favor and remember, protect first, profit second. And I will see y'all in the next episode. Okay? Bye.